Hello, beautiful friends, and welcome to Art and Cocktails. I'm Kat, artist and founder of Create Magazine, and today I want to share something with you that can potentially help you live with more peace, live with more presence, and actually experience more miracles and more support in your life. So the other day, someone asked me, Kat, what percentage of your income are your art sales? And honestly, it's so funny because this was a question that would haunt me early on in my career. When I first graduated, I put so much emphasis and so much pressure on making all of my income from art. Now, I also just want to share that I have many, many amazing friends who solely base their income off their art sales, and they're truly happy this way and they love it. But that has not been the case for me, and I'll explain in a moment before you panic. You're like, Kat, but I thought you were an artist. I am. So the person that asked me is also an artist, and she was more curious because she's growing her business, and I know she's trying to strategize and see like how are people doing things, which is totally, totally fair. But the reason why I want to share this episode with you all is because over the past few years, actually throughout my career, I've seen so many people quit and put so much pressure on making a specific amount from their art practice that what ends up happening is they end up burning out, getting really discouraged and frustrated. And instead of leaning into their full potential as a creative, they end up walking away. And in many cases, maybe that's better for their mental health. No judgment. Everyone has their own journey. But I know a lot of times it can be prevented. We know the famous quote by Banksy, if you get tired, learn to rest, not quit. But many of us do not take this advice to heart. Now, of course, income is so important, and I have many episodes on the show. Check out my episode about making 10K a month as an artist and creative entrepreneur for tips and ideas. And I think that one thing that I am so, so grateful for in my life today is the lack of pressure on art sales. And I'll explain. I actually explain in depth how I make most of my revenue in that video, so I'll link it below. But what I want to share with you is the pivotal moment that I made the decision. I did not want to live my life in this way where I put so much emphasis on numbers when it comes to my art. And actually, I read in a book by Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic, and Elizabeth talks about how when you put a lot of pressure on creativity to make you a certain amount of money, it ends up doing the opposite. And she referred to it as almost like herding cats. And I felt the same way. The minute someone tells me I have to make something by a certain amount of time, I immediately lock up, and I don't work well this way. Some people do, but I know myself. So trusting the way that you work and trusting the way that you operate and being able to navigate that is half of the battle. Now, one thing I want to share is what happened with me back in 2019. In 2019, I started to, it was more like 2018, or 2017. Either way, I started to get more attention. I started to get invitations to exhibitions. Galleries were reaching out to me. I was getting featured by tons of blogs and magazines. And what ended up happening was that I had to give my art, the paintings that I made for these shows, and I couldn't sell them. And during that time, a big portion of my income, of my revenue, came from art sales. And so I started to panic. I could not quickly have a studio sale online and make a few $100s to pay for my bills, right? At the time, I was very hand to mouth with my income. And I started to really get scared. I'm like, I really do want these opportunities. I want to work with galleries. I want to put my work out there internationally. But what do I do when I don't have any art to sell? So that's how I started with thinking like an entrepreneur. I had to sit down, and I remember I was actually in this new studio. I just moved in, and instead of enjoying it and decorating, I was panicked. I was like, I have no idea how to move forward. So I started to think. I started to make lists of ideas of how I can make money. I can have a workshop in my studio. I can sell these works on paper. So I just started writing down anything and everything that I could possibly think of. And eventually that was the beginning of my first online workshop. And eventually that's how our book came about, because I was in the grind at the time. But I thought that was something wrong with me. And I thought that I failed. And I experienced a lot of shame around the fact that, well, what does one do when they get invited to this amazing opportunity, but now it is actually cramping their style in terms of finances? And I talk a lot about developing income streams, not just from a place of making more money. It's not about greed. For me personally, it really helps regulate my nervous system. So I'm not going into fight or flight, feast or famine, because when you sell a bunch of art and you get paid, it can be wonderful. And then when that money's gone and you don't manage it correctly, that can create a lot of stress and anxiety. And unfortunately, a lot of self-employed artists and creative entrepreneurs go through this. So when this weekend, this artist asked me what percentage of my sales come from my art, I was completely honest with her. And I actually was so grateful that she asked me this question, because it reminded me of how fabulous I set up my life to be, that I'm not putting pressure on creating when I really need to rest. I need to sketch. I need to absorb the world around me and process certain experiences that happened in the past few months before I dive back into production, right? Because art is life, and art is like almost a digestion of life and our interpretation and transmutation of what we see, how we see it, and what we experience. So I told her, I was like, honestly, it's probably under 10% these days. Mind you, I do run multiple businesses. I am a mentor and a coach, so I have a lot of educational programs and offers. We get brand deals and Create Magazine as well. So I definitely keep myself busy. It's not that I'm just sitting back and money is falling from the sky, which I welcome if that does happen. But I just thought about it. I'm like, I'm really grateful that I set my life up with systems, with support, with schedules, and with strategies, so that if I don't feel like pushing myself creatively and I need time to frolic and to enjoy life, I can do that. And for some people, that's not an option. Just like my situation back in 2018, 2019, that was not an option for me. I had to quickly go create something and sell it. But I didn't want to live that way anymore. That experience taught me that instead of putting pressure on only having my revenue come from art, why not cushion myself with royalties, with evergreen online courses, with other income streams and mentoring, where I am fully supported regardless of whether or not I'm in full production mode at the studio. Because for me, I am, first of all, I'm a Sagittarius and I'm a manifesting generator. So I'm an adventurer. I also move through ideas quickly. I move through careers or business projects quickly. Not so much careers. I think I'll always be an artist. But it just made me so grateful for the way that I set up my life. And I talk about this a lot, but back in the day, I thought there was something wrong with doing this. I thought that would make me less of an artist. I thought that I would not get the respect from the art world. But in reality, now the world is changing and this taboo subject is being more openly talked about. One, for mental health reasons. Two, for financial empowerment for artists, so that they're not giving all their power away to institutions and galleries and patrons, but rather they know how to advocate for themselves and they know how to show up for themselves. The other thing that's interesting too is something that my friends and I were talking about in our group chat, is that a lot of times, there's nothing wrong with dreaming to be in museums, but this day and age, I was reading the art newspaper and they're talking about this conflict that museums and art institutions face when they solely rely on big backers. And we've seen a lot of cases with this, with the Sackler family drama, opioid crisis, and unfortunately, they had a lot of funds that they donated to museums and art institutions and artists. And most recently, the war between Palestine and Israel and the genocide that's going on there. And when artists don't want to be a part of a narrative or support something that they're completely against and it breaks all their values, it can be really disempowering because you're financially relying on these institutions. So that's why I'm so passionate about talking about this, to put freedom back in the hands of artists, to put autonomy back in the hands of artists, so that we can make our decisions and decide who's a good fit to work with and who's not, and maybe skipping that one opportunity and moving forward. So that's why when someone asks me like, oh, what percentage of your money is from your art? It doesn't bother me, because I'm like, life is amazing. And my art has actually improved because now I'm able to give it time and thought instead of feeling pressure to make the same thing, which sometimes still happens. Like I have a show and they want a specific type of work that I make. Yes, I will have to make something similar, which is fine. But for the most part, I have a say and I have a voice as to what I want to share with the world. So if you're an artist who is worried that creating different income streams is going to somehow diminish your value as an artist, I recommend that you find 5 to 10 people that you admire and look through their website, look through pages or ways to work with them and see what kind of things they're offering. You'll probably be surprised to see that many of them offer education, mentorship, they sell prints or merch, maybe they do speeches, maybe they do custom design work for brands, and so much more. And actually, I have a privilege because I have a membership called the Art Queens. I renamed it to AQ recently, but I've had so many artists and curators and leaders coming through as guest speakers. And I remember an artist, it was Kristen Liu Wong. She shared about how she loves working with galleries and she loves having actual exhibitions for her beautiful work, but the most of her income is coming from brands and brand sponsorships and commissions from bigger companies. And the same has been true with a lot of my clients, like energy companies, corporations, designers will pay premium because their clients have funding. And that is one way to be able to use your creative work for your income and not have to do something completely separate. Or if you're multi-passionate like me, and maybe you have a gift for educating or writing or speaking or doing something related, but not quite exactly your studio practice, you can obviously lean into all your gifts. You don't need to exclude any of your gifts. It's not going to make you less of an artist, and really feel supported by yourself. So next time you get frustrated, maybe you feel burnt out, or you just feel like quitting, maybe think about ways that you can build a cushion around yourself financially and for your mental health, so that you never ever have to say yes out of pressure, but rather you intentionally curate your life and design your life in a way that reflects yourself, your values, your dreams, and your goals. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. I'm really excited. I'm launching my artist navigation course in just a few weeks after posting this. So if you are new around here and you'd like to work with me and enroll in my signature program for artists looking to build a freedom-based life, to really tap into all of your treasures, please go ahead and sign up for the waitlist for the artist navigation course. It will be coming soon in fall 2024. And I'm looking forward to working with you and sharing some amazing resources with all of you. And I will see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.